Chapter 13. Karina's office was locked up tight when Jack got there. "Damn it," he said aloud. He fished his cell phone out of his pocket and dialed Melanie. "Mel," he said, when she picked up the phone. "Have you heard back from Karina?" "No," she said. "Is everything okay, Jack?" "I don't know, I can't get a hold of her." "Good luck," Melanie said. "I've been doing a little research on that license plate she gave me, and if she's mixed up with these guys she may be in trouble. Big trouble." "I know, Mel. Call me if she calls you, okay?" "I will. Take care." Jack hung up and started to dial Babushka. Instead, he decided to drive over and see her. He was hoping that she would have some insight into why known associates of a dissident faction would be following Karina. It was starting to look like terrorism. He wanted to be sure before he called in a federal agency. He dreaded having to do so. It would put the pack at risk during an investigation, and it would also put Babushka's secret identity at risk. No, he had to handle this himself. His way. Jack got stuck in traffic twice on his way to Babushka's. He tuned in the car radio to a news station to find out why traffic was stopped. He was shocked to find out that one of the Kardashians had gotten pulled over for speeding in her black Mercedes SUV, and at least 5 cars with paparazzi inside them had also pulled over, blocking a lane, and all were responsible for the standstill on the freeway. Damn this ridiculous plastic town and all these stupid ridiculous people going nowhere and getting in my way, he thought as he willed them to move forward. He was sweating profusely, even though it was a relatively cool day. If something happens to Karina before I get a chance to tell her that I am a stupid, jealous idiot. At last, the traffic began inching forward, and he exited the freeway as soon as he could and used surface streets from then on. He finally made it to Babushka's over an hour later. He knocked on the door maybe a bit too loudly, judging by the look on her face when she opened the door. "Jack, that was a scary knock." "Sorry. Force of habit from my cop days. I'll work on my civilian knocking technique." "What's wrong? Is Karina here?" "No, I just this minute got back from the county jail. I've been trying to call her." "What's wrong, Jack? Is she okay?" "I don't know. May I please come in?" "Yes, of course." Babushka stepped back to allow him to enter. "I'm afraid I've not had a very good day. My mind is a bit frazzled and I'm quite upset. And now, here you are in a panic, your face looking like my Karina has disappeared. What is going on, Jack?" Her eyes were red-rimmed and she was wringing her hands. Jack told Babushka about Karina's call to Melanie, and Melanie's call to him. Melanie said the vehicle was listed as belonging to Mel M. Ustaz, and it was flagged. Flagged. Melanie says the flag it had on it was from the National Security Agency. Ustaz is a suspected terrorist and the NSA has him on the watch list. Melanie will have to answer some tough questions about why she was looking him up, but I'm not worried about her at the moment because she did not release any information to Karina and really did nothing wrong but take a phone call from her and run the plate. I'm worried about why these people would be following Karina. What do they want with her? Tell me, Anna. Babushka sat down in the chair closest to her front door and rested her head in her hands for a few moments. She looked up at Jack and said, "What country is he from, this Ustaz person?" "He's from East Turkestan." "Why?" "There is some connection between these people and Vanya and the werewolf hunters. Believe me when I say that I don't know what it is. I went to see Vanya in jail today in hopes of getting answers, but that was a dead end." "Vanya wouldn't even talk to you?" "He couldn't," she said. "He's dead. He killed himself today. Or so they said." Babushka's shoulders were shaking with grief. "I am so very sorry. How could that be?" Jack asked, shocked. "He was a werewolf. He would have to have been killed by silver to the heart, right?" "Yes," Babushka said. "He obviously had help. I just don't know from whom or how it happened." "I'm so sorry." Jack hugged her. "I know he was a dear friend of yours." "Thank you. Now let's worry about the living. Where in the world is Karina?" "I'm going to look for her right now," Jack replied. "I'll call you when I find her. Please call me if you hear from her." "Put your number in my contact list," Babushka said. "I don't have it and I should." "Likewise," he said. Babushka got out her cell phone and he switched phones with her. They got their numbers entered and switched the phones back again. "Where will you look?" Babushka asked. "I'm going to start with Chung Li." After she spoke to him, this all started. I don't know where I'll go if that doesn't pan out, but I'll keep in touch. Do you have silver bullets in your gun? I still have the silver bullets I had made in my trunk. She nodded. This is a huge city. You can't do this alone. I've got it. No, you don't. You need help. Lots of help. You can't come with me. It's too dangerous. That's not who I meant when I said, help. He did sort of a mental double take. You're right. Do it. Call in the cavalry. Now you're thinking like a werewolf. What do you mean? The pack mentality. It's how we survive and thrive. He nodded. Keep in touch. I better hit it. After Jack left, Babushka immediately phoned Ivan. Hello. It's Babushka. How are you, Ivan? How am I? I'm scared to hear your voice on the line. That's how I am. You've never called me for anything, so I assume something's very wrong. What's happened to Karina? Ivan listened carefully. Time is of the essence. It breaks my heart to tell you this, but Vanya is dead, supposedly of suicide in his jail cell, and Karina is missing. I think the Langren might have kidnapped. Chapter 14. Jack broke into Karina's office and booted up her computer. As he had the day he had fixed her sink, he bypassed her Windows password and got access through safe mode, something he had learned last year from a YouTube video. It worked like a charm. Luckily, she had already set up a default administrator, or he wouldn't have been able to hack in that way. He looked at the files on her desktop and clicked on a spreadsheet that said, Case 1 Notes. He quickly found what he was looking for. He typed the phone number into his phone and hit send. After 3 rings, his call was answered by a woman with a thick accent. He was glad that Chung Li was an easy name to pronounce, because that was the only part the woman on the other end of the line seemed to understand. A minute went by and a man's voice came on the line. This is Chung Li, he said. To whom am I speaking? My name is Jack Hardy, a special investigator for the district attorney's office. What do you want with me? I am looking for Karina Nosova and... Chung Li cut him off. Miss Nosova is not with me. Goodbye. Listen to me, please, Jack said, trying to stay patient. Karina is missing. And she's my girlfriend, and I'm really worried about her. She always communicates with me, but she's been unreachable for a couple of hours. The last time I spoke to her, she had been followed by a man whom she confronted, and he told her he was a werewolf. A man in your employ. Lee sighed. Yes, she told me that as well. I have been making discreet inquiries, and I may have discovered something. What? Jack asked. I met Karina at a restaurant that my friend owns, and I am heavily invested in. One of the chefs there fits the description of the man Ms. Nosova described to me. He also has access to a black SUV. It's not his, but a man who he works with on the side. The man is in the import-export business, if you get my drift. Don't ask me what the product is. I don't know, and I don't want to know. Anyway, I asked my friend if this man was on duty the day Karina and I met there, and he said yes, he was. He told me he was there all day. However, until evening. I doubted he was being truthful, though. Why is that? Jack asked. Don't you trust your friend? Xiong has been a very good friend to me for many years. However, he is currently involved with some people of whom I don't approve. He and I have had conversations about it in the past, so I think he may be hiding things from me. Now, what is the chef's name? Jack asked. And where can I find him? His name is Wang Yazhou, and I have access to the employees of Xiong's restaurant because of my legitimate business affiliation. Give me a minute. Chung put Jack on hold for a few minutes, and when he came back on the line, he gave him an address in a rough part of LA near Chinatown. You know how to get there? No problem. I have a map of Los Angeles in my head. Great. I'll meet you there, he said. You might need an interpreter. Thank you, Jack told him. But if he has Karina, you may not want to be a witness to what goes down. What do you mean, a witness? I'm in this. You're in this. She's in this. And I really like her. I don't want anything to happen to her either. We're long past hoping to just be witnesses and pretend that nothing bad is going on. Chung said and hung up. Jack hung up, shut down Karina's computer, and started out the door. As he was going out, he ran into Ivan or Igor. He couldn't tell them apart yet. Did you find her? The twin asked him. Not yet, but how did you know I was looking? Karina's babushka called. She knew that we would come. You are a new part of All this, but you'll learn. Your pack is your family, your best friend. Jack not only didn't have the energy to argue, he had enough insight to know that a few born werewolves as backup would probably be a smart idea. All right. I got a lead on someone who might know where she is. Jack gave the twin the address and said, "Follow me." They split up to go to their separate cars, but before the twin was out of sight, Jack said, "Hey, which one are you?" The twin smiled at him and said, "I'm Ivan the Alpha, and stop worrying, Jack. We'll bring her home safe. You're the one she wants to mate with for life, not me." "You're sure about that? Because from what I saw, if you make her cry again, I will kick your ass for being such an idiot." You saw love in Karina's eyes, but not the kind of love you thought you saw. Tatiana, my fiancée, is pregnant and I couldn't be more thrilled about it. Karina is a pack member whether she claims it or not, and I deeply love her. As I love them all. As family. As you are now my family. And then Ivan's eyes shifted to ice blue as he looked at Jack and grasped his forearm in what reminded him of an old Roman handshake that he had once seen in a movie. He did it back and felt amazing strength, love and compassion flow between them. When they let go, Jack asked, "What the hell was that?" "It is a formal greeting when we are in our human forms. It is a reconnection. Or a welcome. It's not like I am going to run up and sniff you in my human form. Thank you for that. It is more than that. Through Karina, because she has claimed you as her mate, you are my wolf brother. Therefore you are protected by the pack and even loved by us. I am the head of that pack, though you will grow to learn that even though I may sometimes tell you what I want you to do, it will always be for your own welfare, which I put above my own. I do not consider myself better than you. In fact, I serve you. Now do you understand what it means to be alpha?" "I'm starting to," Jack said sheepishly. "I was an idiot for being jealous of you. She tried to tell me exactly what you just told me. I need to apologize to her. Congratulations. Your ass-kicking has been cancelled. Let's go. Just follow me. In your car." Ivan turned and walked down the street where a van with its motor running was waiting for him. Jack got into his car, started it, and pulled away from the curb. The van immediately pulled out behind him. Slowly, Jack began to realize that the more he learned about being a werewolf, the less he understood about his human emotions, his place in society, or anything else. He only knew that one thing was true at this very moment in time. He loved Karina like he had never loved anyone else. However, she was bringing others into his life, complicating it. Even so, he felt the werewolf inside of him rising up in joy that he was not alone in the world anymore. No. He had a pack and they wanted. Chapter 15. Karina was locked in a crypt alcove and waited for her uncle to return. As they had made their way down from the roof, he had received a text message. He told her, "I have to deal with this, please excuse me," and left her with the two kidnappers. She sat there now behind the bars that protected the graves from thieves, and damned if she knew how he had obtained keys to all of this stuff in the cathedral and under it. Her mind was fleeting through everything she knew and also processing all that she had learned today. Andrei Koslov, the werewolf hunter, had killed Dominika Rykov. Andrei had been killed by one of Dimitri's associates, and Vanya had been framed for the murder. Karina wasn't sure of the exact motive of that, except to get him out of the way to somehow coerce her and Babushka into integrating with his murderous pack of 2,000 strong. Her phone had stopped vibrating because she was inside of rock walls and cell signals did not penetrate. She looked at the no signal on the screen and turned it off to save the battery. She thought about how frantic Babushka must be by now. She sighed heavily as Dmitri came back into the stone corridor. "What troubles you, dear?" he asked her, as if they were just two normal family members having a chat. "What troubles me? I would swear at you right now if I wasn't in the presence of the bones of saints. How could you desecrate a church with your evil? Perhaps you are the one who is evil, the one who is turned against our kind. I have done nothing of the sort. I have a pack, a normal pack, one that does not feed on human beings." Karina looked around the small alcove. "You are evil. I am in a crypt, held against my will, handcuffed and sitting with and on the bones of the dead saints and monks. I'm starting to talk to them." He laughed evilly. "Do they answer you?" "Not yet. I still have my sanity, but you're crazy, Dmitri, and power-hungry. And ill. If you think you can move 2,000 werewolves to Los Angeles and Start feeding on people. You have another thing coming. This is the United States of America. You can't do this here. I won't allow it. You won't allow it? Watch me do it and acquiesce to my rule. Take your place as royalty of the largest pack in the world, and then tell me who is evil. Can I tell you something? I sort of like small, intimate werewolf packs. Rabbit hunting, howling at the moon and running in the fields or the beach, splashing through the mud, not hurting people, not reaching your full potential either with that ragtag bunch. And they do kill people. I hear through our intelligence that they take out drug traffickers, human traffickers, and the like. Come on, Dimitri. I have nothing to do with all that, and there is no proof that they are doing that. Second of all, I know that my grandmother must be terribly worried about me. She's got to be having a meltdown because she can't reach me. She'll survive, and she too will be invited into my pack. Oh, that's just great. Will you please allow me to go to a room where I can call her? Oh yeah, and the air down here is bad. It stinks of decay and mold, and I badly have to pee. I don't want to pee on the bones of saints. Seriously, get me the hell out of here, or you shall see werewolf behavior that is unbecoming to a werewolf queen or a princess or whatever you think I am. Dimitri smiled. Soon, Karina. Soon. I must warn you about one thing. Don't try to turn with the cuffs on. I don't know what would happen. Would your paws be cut off by the handcuffs? You can heal from most wounds, but you can't grow new paws or arms, you know. Her heart hammered. Let me go. You're my kin, for God's sake. Where is your God now? He's watching you, Uncle Dimitri. She struggled against the handcuffs. Come on, this is ludicrous. What do you hope to gain by this stunt of kidnapping? Me? To win me over to your side by saying you will let me go if I join your creepy, cannibalistic cult? That's not going to happen. You and I have things to work out first. Seems that your pack is on the move tonight, along with your ex-cop boyfriend. What? Jack is with Ivan and Igor. Yes, together they are going to pay a visit to one of my associates. Personally, I don't care for the man and could very easily replace him, but if I let them intimidate my people, Karina, it will be harder for them to accept the new order of things later on. The new order? Are you really calling it that? As in you are the alpha of a giant werewolf pack that eats their fill of the good people of Los Angeles on every full moon? He laughed. The way you say it, it sounds like a bad horror movie. Well, isn't it just like that? Her mind was racing. What is Jack doing with the pack? She thought. Ivan and Igor knew that Jack could only change with the full moon, so she could only pray that they would protect him. If Dimitri's associate was a Langren, as she suspected he was, he would need their full protection. Yes, my dear. Either you take your rightful and royal place at the head of the pack or you die. I will give you the choice of mates on the side, even as long as it is one who was born a wolf. Right now, however, we need to quell this war that your pack is unwittingly starting. We, she said, hopeful that meant he was taking her with them. Yes, dear. I have tamed my wolves. I don't allow them to bite unless their life or the life of another wolf is threatened, or unless we are feeding. When I give my permission. He paused. I was just pushing your buttons about eating people. Really, what do you take me for? She let out a deep exhale of relief that they weren't eating people. I have no idea if you are lying or telling the truth about any of this, but I still take you for a madman. Yes, I am a madman. Welcome to the Rasputin family. I won't ever again be so naive as to believe a thing you say to me, Dimitri. You need some taming, little one. I must say, you have such a fire in you. Don't talk to me like a creep. I have grandfather Grigori's genes too. You. No. Don't even say that you think of taming me. I will not be your political puppet, or your werewolf queen, or whatever you have in mind. You're certifiable. That's your opinion. Some say I am brilliant. Madly brilliant. Madness and intelligence often go hand in hand, she retorted. Get off your high horse. If I have to, I will call my grandfather to rise from the grave and slay you where you stand. That old resurrection tale? Don't even go there with your superstitious nonsense. My pack is on the way. Believe it. He folded his arms and looked at her. Your pack is not that tame either. Or perhaps I should say they are not as controlled as they should be. I would like your first piece of business as pack royalty to be to explain to them how detrimental a war between my strong pack and your weaker one would be. Karina not only wanted him to take her with him, but she needed to warn the pack. I'll go with you, she said, but I'm not agreeing to anything beyond settling this tonight in some peaceful way. A peace accord between my pack and yours? Surely you need a, what do you Americans call it? A reality check. Look who's talking. It's like you're channeling Genghis Khan. He is one of my heroes. Dmitri got out a big rusty iron key and headed for the locked gate of the crypt alcove. He put the key in and turned it just as a rat ran across her foot. She was never so glad to be released from anything. The handcuffs too, Dmitri. You have to swear on your God that you won't immediately turn to your werewolf form and kill me if I release the cuffs. I swear, she said. I swear. I swear. I swear. Good girl. He paused. Don't cross me, Karina, he said. Not ever. Chapter 16. Jack pulled up across the street from the ramshackle-looking little house that belonged to the address that Chung Li had given him. He saw the pack's van parked a few houses down behind him. He got out of the car, and as he did, he saw Ivan getting out of the van. Ivan followed him up to the front door of the house. Jack knocked and they waited silently. After a minute, a very large man pulled open the door. What? He said rudely. Then recognition crossed his face as he looked at Ivan and he started to slam the door. Jack stopped him, and as the man ran deeper into the house, Ivan ran after him. Jack was a made werewolf, and he had seen both Karina and Lance Brashears turn on that night that Lance had bitten him, but he had never seen anything like Ivan and doubted he ever would. Ivan shucked his clothes at lightning speed and changed into the largest wolf that Jack had ever seen, in less than 2 seconds. Before the man hit the next room of the house, Ivan had him pinned with his teeth against the man's throat. Jack pulled out his gun, loaded with silver bullets from the Lance Brashears' incident. Where the big Asian man had lain seconds ago now lay a formidable, jet-black wolf. He growled at Ivan, and Ivan's teeth made contact with the other beast's neck. Before he could bite down, Jack yelled, "No, Ivan, not yet. We need him alive. We need to find Karina." Suddenly, a voice behind Jack exclaimed something in Chinese. It was Chung Li, and Jack had forgotten all about him. He glanced at him and turned his attention back to the wolves. Ivan hadn't bitten down yet, but still maintained the upper hand. "Stay back," Jack told Chung Li. The rest of the pack had gathered out front as well. Jack said to the black wolf underneath Ivan, "You are way outnumbered here. All we want is to know where Karina Nosova is. If you help us find her alive, you get to live. If you don't, after he rips out your throat and the rest of the pack has a feast, I'll shoot you in the heart with a silver bullet and put you out of your stinking misery." The beast continued his struggle with Ivan, and suddenly, another large, gray wolf that he assumed was Igor and 3 others surrounded Jack. He glanced again at Chung Li, who looked like he might be going into shock. Indeed, he was holding his chest. The other wolves gathered around the pair on the floor, teeth bared and hair standing on end. Their eyes all glowed in the darkened room. Jack went closer, and as Ivan got the other wolf under control again, he lowered the pistol and pressed it up against the beast's chest, above where its heart lay. "You have about 2 seconds to live," Jack told him. "Where is Karina?" "Jack." It was Karina's voice. Jack turned around and saw her standing inside the room near the doorway. There was a sophisticated-looking, silver-haired man and 2 large bodyguard-looking types with her. "My God, Karina!" He started toward her, and the man with the silver hair put up a hand to stop him. "Tell the silver one to let go of my man and change back," he said to Karina. "Ivan, do as he says," she said. "Karina, what's going on?" Jack said, confused. Ivan didn't get off the other beast. Instead, he bit into the animal's neck, drawing blood. Once he had his teeth in, he picked the beast up by the neck and tossed it hard over to where the rest of the pack waited. They tore at the Langren, ripping apart limbs and tearing through muscle and bone with their powerful jaws. Meanwhile, Ivan changed again and stood before them in his nakedness, not at all abashed. "Who is this?" he said of the silver-haired man to Karina. "Dmitri Rasputin," the man said, actually extending his hand as if it were a business meeting or a social call. Ivan took a small step back when he heard the name. He looked at Karina and said, "Is it true?" She nodded. "Karina and I had a deal, didn't we?" the man asked. Yes, Ivan, Dmitri wants us to stand down on this. She glanced at the pack. They were still dismembering the carcass of the black wolf. She said, "It's a bit late for that, however. I'll forgive you for the death of the big Turkic, but only if you tell them here and now how things are going to be," Dmitri said. While they were talking, Jack was looking back and forth between them. Finally he said, "What the hell is going on? Karina, who is this man?" Karina had promised Babushka that she wouldn't tell Jack her secret. She looked at Dmitri. He wasn't giving her much of a choice. "Dmitri Rasputin is my long-lost uncle. He is the alpha male to an extremely large pack in East Turkestan. He wants to assume control of our pack and likely all other American packs as well." Ivan laughed. "I'm the alpha of this pack. You will have to kill me first." "Done," said Dmitri, and the man next to him pulled out a large silver knife. Ivan changed again so quickly that no one saw it happen. He had the big man by the wrist of the hand holding the knife. The man dropped the knife and suddenly he too was a werewolf. Jack started to go over to Karina when the other big man changed as well and got between them. There were a lot of clothes on the floor. Jack shot him and his body flew backward. While he was stunned, Jack pressed the gun to the wolf's chest and shot him again, this time in the heart. This time lethally as the silver bullet hit home. Meanwhile, the rest of the pack, the born werewolves anyway, had gotten involved in the fight between Ivan and the bodyguard. Jack looked around for Karina, but he didn't see her, or the silver-haired man. The man Dmitri may have changed to his wolf form and could be in the fight, but Jack knew Karina as the snow-white wolf she was. He knew she wasn't there and he ran outside to look for her. He saw her and Dmitri moving quickly toward a blue sedan. He had her by the hair and a gun held against her. Chung Li was still in the front yard. It looked like he may have thrown up, and he had his cell phone to his ear. Jack could hear sirens in the distance. He assumed that was what Chung Li was doing on the phone. He also knew this neighborhood and LAPD. It would take them some time to get her. He couldn't deal with anyone else just now. He had to get to Karina. He chased after Dmitri and her, reaching them just after Dmitri had shoved her in the rental car and was going to get in after her. Karina did the only thing she could think of. While fully dressed, she turned to her werewolf form. Her clothes exploded off her body like confetti inside the rental vehicle and she charged through the passenger window glass in a shower of sparkling shards. Jack grabbed the man by his coat, and when he did, the expensive suit ripped in shreds and Jack was left holding a handful of silver fur. The powerful wolf leapt toward Jack's face, and as Jack stepped back and put up his hands for protection, Karina the white wolf was on him in a flash, fangs bared and saliva dripping. Karina took down the other wolf in a single bound. She bit and tore at the wolf's fur and flesh as it struggled underneath her. Jack still had the gun, but he was afraid if he took a shot that he would hit Karina. The silver wolf flipped her over and bit her hard on the leg, causing her to yelp loudly. Jack tried to get a shot off, but the massive beast came at him, again biting at the arm that held the gun. Jack shook his arm violently, trying to get the beast off, but to no avail. The more he struggled, the fiercer the beast became. Jack finally dropped the gun, and when he did, a human Karina was there to pick it up. She aimed the gun at the beast's back and fired, praying that it would hit his heart. The silver wolf let go of Jack's arm and fell to the ground. Dmitri was bleeding, but Karina couldn't tell if he was dead. She started toward him and, when she got close, he snarled and turned to attack again. The sirens were getting louder now. The silver wolf looked toward the 3 police cars that had come squealing around the corner, and back at Karina. He let out a loud roar and took off down the street, disappearing into one of the yards. Neither Karina nor Jack chased him. Instead, they turned toward the sound of the man on the bullhorn telling them to drop their weapons and put up their hands. Karina stood there with her hands up, naked and mortified, as the uniformed officer approached them. He kicked Jack's gun out of the way and then pushed him against one of the police cars to frisk him. Another of the officers handed Karina a blanket that she wrapped herself in. "What in the hell is going on here?" one of the police officers demanded. Jack said, "My name is Jack Hardy. I work for the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. I recently retired from the North Hollywood Division as a homicide detective. Show me your credentials." Jack got out his wallet and showed his ID to the officer. "I remember you. I crashed your retirement party." Jack nodded. Good to see you again, Hanson. This is my girlfriend, Karina Nosova. She is a private detective and she was abducted today at gunpoint. Followed them here and stopped them before they could assault her. The men ran away when they heard the sirens. Karina looked at Jack. She was both surprised and impressed with the way he had come up with that explanation so quickly. She glanced over at the house. Across the street, the front door was closed, and Chung Lee was no longer in the yard. The house didn't look any different than any other one on the street, and the police weren't paying any attention to it. What happened to your arm? Hanson said to Jack. And to your neck and chest? He asked Karina. Jack explained. One of the kidnappers had a large dog. I think it was one of those sled type of dogs. Anyway, when I pulled out my gun, the dog attacked me. The cop looked a bit skeptical but turned to Karina and said, "What about you, miss? Did the dog get you too?" "Yes," she said, not knowing the extent of her injuries. "I think it's just a flesh wound, though." She looked at Jack then and said, "He needs an ambulance." "No, I'll be fine. I'm a quick healer." "You've been mauled," the cop said. "I'm calling the paramedics for you before you bleed to death." "No, really. I'm okay." "So you refuse medical help?" Hanson said. "That's right. I want to accompany Karina to the police station. I need to ensure that nothing goes awry with them taking her report." "I see you know the LAPD." Jack nodded. "Only too well." Karina was taken to the police station for questioning. She was given a paper shirt and pair of pants, disposable scrubs, so she wouldn't have to be wrapped in a blanket. She finally got to relieve herself and then she dressed in the women's restroom and came out. Immediately, they separated her from Jack and put her in an interview room to take her statement. "I'll be right outside, Karina," he said before they closed the door. "I can see through the glass, you can't, and I won't leave you." She nodded nervously. During the interview, she told them she had been leaving the office to run an errand and was forced at gunpoint into a white van by a large Asian man. There had been a big dog tied up in the back of the van as he drove, he told her to strip off her clothes. She told them she did as she was told, out of fear for her life, and once she was nude, the man had said something about being followed. She didn't know then that it was Jack following them, she said. The man had told her lie down in back of the van and she said he drove very fast through the city until Jack somehow forced him to stop where the police had ultimately found them. There a fight between him, Jack, and the dog ensued. She and Jack both sustained their injuries from the dog, but somehow Jack had fought off both the dog and the man. She lied and said that before police arrived, the man had driven away in the van. As she was talking, she was mildly amazed at herself for lying so easily, but then again she had been doing it her whole life in order to cover up what she was. After what seemed like an hour of interrogation, she was finally told that she could go home, that she would not be charged with anything. Charged with anything? Just to remind you, I was kidnapped at gunpoint, stripped naked, bitten, and almost raped. I am the victim. Would you like to see a rape counselor now? No, I want to get out of here. When the officer opened the interview room door for her, Jack was waiting. Now that she knew Jack was as good of a liar as she couldn't be sure if it was just more show for the police or if he really meant it, but when he saw her, he opened his arms and wrapped her in them. He briefly put a finger to his lips, a signal for her not to speak in the corridor. They left the station together, both of them silent until they had gotten into Jack's car. Jack, that was insanely stressful. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for women who are assaulted and have to go through an interrogation like that. I know. It almost makes me hate cops, except for you, of course. He sighed heavily. We need to get to Babushka's house before Dimitri does, Karina told him. Dialing Babushka's Chapter 17. Jack started the car. He didn't ask any questions, and Karina was glad. She would try to explain it all to him later, but now she was worried about her grandmother. Jack did ask her to call Ivan on the way and find out how things had gone for the pack after they had left. She was surprised at the way Jack genuinely seemed to care that they had all gotten out safely. Perhaps he was starting to feel the kindred spirit, the spirit of the pack. After she had called Babushka to give her the short version of events, Karina dialed Ivan and he answered on the first ring. Hello, Ivan. Jack and I wondered what happened in the house after we left. Do you want details? Ivan asked. Or do you just need to know that none of those 3 Langren werewolves will bother anyone again and that the house was spotless and free of looking like a crime scene when we left? Karina couldn't help but crack a little smile. The pack had really shown her over the past few days that no matter what had happened along the way, you never turned your back on family. Ask him about Chung Li, Jack told her. She did. We took him inside when we heard the police coming, Ivan told her. He was having a bit of trouble processing what he was seeing. By the time we cleaned up and dropped him at his apartment, he was exhausted almost to the point of passing out. He said he was going to take a Xanax and go to bed. Hopefully, he'll wake up believing it was all a nightmare. If he doesn't and he says anything, though, no one will believe him. Trust me when I say that we left no trace. I do trust you, Ivan. Thank you, she said. Karina, what about Dmitri? Ivan asked. Karina sighed. He got away, Ivan. He won't stay gone though, and I fear that next time, he'll come prepared for war with plenty of werewolves at his side. Then we get ready here as well. Take care, Syestra, he told her. I will. Talk to you soon. After she hung up, Jack asked her if she was ready to tell him about Dmitri and what that was all about, the connection between them. She told him she would, but she couldn't concentrate right now since she was so worried about Babushka. When Jack and Karina arrived, Babushka jerked open the door and ran out on the porch. She took Karina in her arms and squeezed her until she was hardly able to breathe. Holding her back so she could look at her face, Babushka said, Are you okay, Meliaka? And then, noticing the gauze on Jack's arm and wrist and the scratches on Karina, she said, Dear Lord, look at you too. Come inside and let me put a poultice on those while you tell me what happened. When they got inside, Babushka told them both to have a seat and she would be right back. She went into the kitchen, and Jack and Karina sat silently, looking at each other. Finally, Jack said, I'm glad you're okay. Karina smiled at him. We're fast healers. Thank you, I'm glad you're okay. Too. Will you excuse me for a minute? Sure, he said. She went to the kitchen where Babushka was and left him there watching the fuzzy little television that Babushka never shut off. Babushka had out her box of remedies, as Karina had termed it when she was growing up. It contained garlic, apple cider vinegar, turmeric powder, coconut oil and dried chamomile flowers. The smells of the box took Karina back to her childhood, where every scrape, cut and bruise was gently treated by Babushka with ingredients from the box. It also took her back to the night she had almost been intimate with Ivan, but instead she'd been shot. She shuddered as she thought about killing the man afterward. It was the stuff her nightmares were still made of. Then she thought about Dmitri, and she knew that if he wasn't stopped, and soon he would introduce her to a whole new set of. Babushka wrapped her in a tight hug. I'm so happy that you're here and safe. I was out of my mind with worry. I'm sorry you had to go through that, she told her grandmother. I hate to worry you. Babushka looked at Karina's face and stroked her hair softly. There is much you need to tell me, isn't there? She asked. Yes, Karina said, tears welling in her eyes. I'm just not sure how much I can say in front of Jack. Babushka, what is it that you have to hide from Jack? Is it about me? Babushka asked. About my secret? Her grandmother knew that it was the one thing she and Karina had agreed she shouldn't be honest with Jack about. Not for their own peace of mind, but for his own. Karina nodded. Yes, I have been hiding your secret from Jack, from anyone who didn't already know. Babushka put her hands on either side of Karina's face and said, No more secrets, okay, Meliaka? I can see now that it was wrong of me to ask you to start out with a new love without total honesty. Too much is happening and our family needs to be on the same page. Ivan called me after he left you tonight. All he would tell me was that you were okay and you would be home soon. I had the sense that what he wasn't telling me was that this was my fault. Babushka, none of this is your fault. You made choices that you were forced to make out of circumstances. You've never done anything to upset or harm anyone, especially me. Babushka kissed her cheek. You're a good girl, Karina. Go in there and tell Jack the truth. I'll be right there. Karina went back out to where Jack still sat, staring at the fuzzy television, but obviously thinking about the events of the night. She sat next to him on the couch and took his hand in hers. Jack, I hope you know first and foremost that what I said to you about how I feel yesterday was the most honest thing I've ever told anyone. He didn't answer, but he was listening. I have something else to tell you too. She took a deep breath and let it out. My babushka has a secret. He looked away from the TV news and straight at her. Go on, Karina. It's a secret that not even I knew until the night you came to dinner. The pack had alluded to some things. Karina, just tell him. Babushka had come into the room carrying a tray with tea and cookies, and the bandages with her healing concoction spread on them. What's that weird smell? Asked Jack. Natural medicine. Although you have healing abilities as a werewolf, this will speed you back to good health. He nodded. Sorry to interrupt. Go on, Karina. Karina looked back at Jack and said, Babushka is royalty. She is the daughter of Tsar Nicholas II. She is the Grand Duchess Anastasia Nikolaevna of Russia. Jack looked at Karina like he thought she had lost her mind, and then he looked at Babushka. What? The old woman smiled at him and nodded. It's true, Jack. I know it sounds incredible and unbelievable, but think about what you know now that you didn't know only a few short months ago. Would you have believed any of it? No, he said simply. Sometimes, even now that I've lived through it and seen it with my own eyes, I still have trouble believing it all. He paused. You don't look your age, Anna. Anastasia. Wow, the missing Russian princess. It's you. Babushka smiled and said, Give me your hand. Jack put his arm out, and as they talked, she bandaged his wounds. Babushka told him the same story that she had told Karina not long ago, about her escape from Russia and how Grigory Rasputin had turned her into a werewolf to get her safely out of Russia and then later had fathered a daughter with her, Karina's mother. Jack didn't ask any questions, he only listened. When she finished, he said, Why tell me this now? Babushka looked to her granddaughter and said, Something has happened that even I don't know yet, and it has to do with the Rasputins, I believe. If what Ivan told me on the phone was the tip of the iceberg, now it is Karina's turn. As she bandaged Karina's wounds, Karina began to talk. First she asked her grandmother about Grigory's wife and children. Babushka looked at her and said, Yes, he was married. He left her all of them to counsel my mother. He said that it was something he carried much guilt over, but he didn't love his wife. He told me then, and remember I was very young and naive, that he had left the children because he knew that they needed their mother and her them. He felt like he was called to give counsel and to preach what he knew about religion and spirituality. He thought that it was a gift he was compelled to share with more of the world than the small community that he hailed from. He brought the girls to live with him later. I think that was around 1913. His oldest daughter, Matriona, later called Maria, was his favorite, I believe. He talked about her proudly. The other girl, Varvara, he didn't speak much about. He came to us when they still lived with him. My mother depended upon him for almost everything. We all did, really. My brother Alexei would have died many times without Grigory's healing hands. He had a gift that was from God. Anna, Jack said. What a history. It's even more incredible than being a werewolf. Babushka smiled. I think it's about equal. Karina smiled. What happened to Maria? Maria lived here in Los Angeles before she died. Did you know that? Babushka asked. They both said they hadn't known. Jack had a vague shell-shocked look on his face, and Karina worried how he was taking all of this. Babushka finished wrapping Karina's arm and said, I believe his son was named Dmitri. Karina shuddered. Yes, it is. I didn't hear much about him. We've met recently. He is about the most evil man I have ever met. What? Babushka looked at her now with renewed anxiety in her eyes. Karina, you met him? Yes, Babushka. I was kidnapped and taken to a crypt where I was introduced to Dmitri Rasputin. He called himself my uncle and locked me in handcuffs so I couldn't turn, or I would have lost my hands because my paws are bigger than my wrists. Had I turned, I would have cut them off with the handcuffs. Werewolves are good healers, but we cannot grow new limbs. Oh, my dear Karina, I'm very sorry. That must have been quite a frightening experience. And shocking, to say the least, Karina said. Rasputins are coming out of the woodwork. What is he even doing here? Babushka asked. This is such a huge mess? Yes, it is, and it's heading toward an international incident, and we are caught up in it. Karina looked at her and then at Jack and said, Dmitri, Rasputin is the alpha of a pack of 2,000 werewolves and he wants to take over the city of Los Angeles and get this rule it like a king. If the people resist, he has an off with their heads mentality, except his pack is set to feed on people. Well, he reneged on that later and said that his pack does not feed on people, but I have trouble believing anything he says either way. And further, he wants my help to do it, to take over Los Angeles with his murderous pack. He runs it like a cult. Oh, and he offered me a royal position. He's certifiable, Jack said, grimacing. That's what I told him. Extra creepy was that when I protested him making me his alpha, I want to scrub myself just thinking about his creepy offer. Jack paled. He is one sick, power-hungry, evil man. No one would argue that, Babushka said. Karina explained the rest of what had happened during her brief time with her uncle, leading up to the scene at the house in Chinatown earlier in the day. She also told them what she had learned about the death of Vanya's wife and the werewolf hunter Andrei Koslov. That was when Babushka said, "Poor Vanya. That explains it." Explains what, Babushka? Karina asked. Babushka told them about Vanya's suicide. Someone either got a silver knife to him or they killed him and made it look like a suicide. I think it was the latter, but if it was, there would have to be some sort of person who worked inside the jail who let the knife through, or who used it on him. Or a visitor who is not searched, Karina said. It seems highly suspicious to me that Vasily Kandinsky, Vanya's attorney, never returned any of my calls or emails. Moreover, he would not be searched if he went to the jail to talk to a client. And even the metal detector at the jail and courthouse, well, if the knife was pure silver, some older metal detectors won't pick up on it, because it's non-magnetic. Jack went very still, breathing a little shallowly. This is so bad. I'll try to find out if there was a note or any forensic follow-up. I mean, there is supposed to be, but this whole case, it's so strange. Karina, I suggest you do some checking on Kandinsky. It is possible that the Langren got to him and either forced him to kill Vanya or he's willingly on their side. Karina looked at Jack. His face was pale and he looked like he had heard quite enough for one day. Are you okay? I will be. It's a lot to take in, to comprehend and process, as supernatural and yet natural. We are. And this whole thing is blowing up into something extremely dangerous for a lot of people. It's a lot to comprehend and accept, she said, reaching for his hand. She was relieved when he took hers and squeezed it. I'm sorry I got you into this mess, Jack. It's not your fault or yours, he said, looking at Babushka. Your Highness. He said the last with a grin. Babushka laughed wryly. I was rarely called that as a girl. Things were quite informal in my home, despite the royal blood. She then looked worried and said, Dmitri is still out there, plotting to take over Los Angeles with his pack of 2,000 werewolves. Where do we even go from here? Jack surprised them both with what he said next. To our pack, he said. We need the family together and strong. And we need to gather the rest of the packs in the area. If this man has a virtual army of 2,000 werewolves, we're going to need an army of our own. From what I saw tonight, we already have some mighty soldiers in ours. What we don't have is numbers. Karina wasn't sure how to feel about Jack wanting them together with the pack. She knew that she loved him, and she knew that Ivan loved Tatiana now. But all of them working together, running together? The thought filled her stomach with butterflies. It was going to be a wild ride. All three of them were exhausted, and they agreed that they would get some rest for tonight and try to meet up with the pack tomorrow. Karina wanted to stay with Babushka. She was worried about her being alone with Dmitri on the loose. Babushka wouldn't hear of it, though. She used to do her best to hang on to Karina, but now she was pushing her out the door and into her lover's arms. I have lived through more than most people can imagine, Malietka. We'll be fine. You go and make things right with your Jack. She then whispered. I like that one. Karina smiled and kissed Babushka's cheek. I love you. I love you too, Malietka. Chapter 18. Karina and Jack walked silently to his car and drove to pick up her rental car with the window she'd broken while escaping it in her werewolf form. There was a parking ticket on it and she made a face and shoved it in her purse. Then he followed her car with his car to her apartment. When he parked and turned off the ignition, he walked up to her doorstep as she had her keys out. I'm not leaving you tonight. I can sleep on your couch. Or even out in the car if you don't want me inside, but I'm not going anywhere else tonight. I know you constantly tell me you don't need a bodyguard, but your uncle has upped the ante. Until we have put a silver dagger through his heart, I'm not leaving you alone. He set his jaw stubbornly. Your inner alpha is rising. Is that a bad thing? No, you're coming into your own. It's magnificent. Karina leaned over and kissed him gently on the lips. I would love your protection, especially now. You can sleep on the couch if you like, but you are most welcome in my bed. Jack gasped and followed her into the apartment. Karina laughed. You expected a fight, didn't you? Well, what else should I expect from the granddaughter of a Grand Duchess? You should expect this, she said, kissing his lips again. And this, she said, kissing his neck. Damn, I wasted valuable time not anticipating that, he said with a grin. He kissed her back and before long he said, maybe we should go in your bedroom. Before something else rises too. He paused. Oops, too late. Karina smiled. They didn't even wait until they got to the bedroom. Jack picked her up and her feet came off the floor. While he was holding her, he kissed her hard this time. Karina kissed him back, hungrily, wrapping her legs around his waist and locking her fingers behind his neck. He carried her into the bedroom and they lay down on the bed. They took their time undressing, each other stopping to savor the touch, taste, sight, and smell of each other. As they did, they made love, and as they did, Jack had an epiphany. The lights were low, and he couldn't see the color in her eyes, but this time when she was about to reach her climax, he didn't need to see them change color to believe that she loved him. He could see the ice blue of her eyes that gave it away. He could feel it in a deeper place within himself than he had ever felt anything before. He lay with her that night and listened to the rhythm of her breathing and her heartbeat as she slept. He resolved then and there that he would do anything from this day forward to protect her. She was his family now, and he had also realized, as he had stood watching Ivan and Igor and the others fight for her and protecting him as well, that they were family now. Chapter 19. Jack was in the middle of a wonderful dream about Karina when he heard an alarm go off. His eyes snapped open in the dark and Karina stirred under him. Karina, is that your phone alarm? She murmured lazily and turned it off. Why is it going off in the middle of the night? He asked, kissing her shoulders. She yawned and turned in the circle of his arms and hugged him tightly. Because the moon is going to be full in about an hour and you'll be transforming whether you want to or not. Ah yes, we made werewolves our slaves to the moon. Yes. Most of the time that is true, however, there is a little known phenomenon where made werewolves can turn at will. How? When? He asked. During a lunar eclipse and in the week preceding one. Good to know. What's it like being a born werewolf? Oh, a little different because I can change when I want, but once we are both transformed, the fun begins and we are equals. Good to know. Oh my goodness, with all of the excitement I haven't even been keeping track of the moon calendar. You can download an app on your phone that will remind you when the full moon is going to rise. What's the name of the app? There are several, but I like Werewolf Hunter. How ironic, Jack said. He stretched. What if we stay in your apartment tonight for the full moon? Very funny. I have a damage deposit on this apartment and when I move out, whenever that is, I aim to get it back. Additionally, my lease says no pets. We're not housebroken? Is that what this is about? He laughed and tickled her. Shut up, she said mildly and stretched under his hand, enjoying the tingles from his fingers. Are we housebroken? I'm serious. Jack, yes, we're housebroken, but I wouldn't put it past us to rip off the freezer door and eat all of the frozen meat along with plastic wrap, styrofoam trays and foil. Please tell me we wouldn't really get foil anywhere near our teeth. No worries. We are going out. Werewolves like pleasure and eating is pleasure, and so is hunting and howling and running until our lungs burn from panting and swimming. I see your point. Wait, did you say swimming? Yes. Just so you know, we are never wasting a full moon inside of an urban apartment. Fine. You get up first. You get up first, Jack. She gave him a playful pat on the butt. Cut that out. Oh, did I find a sensitive spot? I feel it starting, the hunger for moonlight. I'm all touchy, feely, wiggly, itchy. You're beginning to recognize the signs. Yeah, I feel like every nerve ending of my body is alert and making ready for the transformation. I feel my strength rising, though incredible strength. He took a deep breath. I feel so healthy. You're right, Jack. About all of that. I am a werewolf. I can hardly believe it. You'll believe it every month from here on out. We need to go somewhere to welcome the full moonrise. I should drive though in case we get stuck in traffic. We can't have you behind the wheel when the moon rises. There's no traffic at 3 a.m. says the ex-cop. All right, you drive. Not the rental car. You have to pay for mileage on that thing, and besides, the passenger window is busted. You can drive mine. Nice, she said. Thank you. No problem. Where are we going? It's a surprise, Jack. I don't know if I like surprises. Embrace it or not, it's your choice. Okay, surprise me. They got dressed and headed outside. Just before moonrise, they made it to Santa Monica State Beach, parked on a side street, hopped out of the car and locked it. This particular beach is closed at night, he protested. Duh, Jack. Of course it is. We don't want anyone bothering us. What are we doing here? We're going to run from Santa Monica to the bluffs in the Pacific Palisades. And back. That's quite a run. Not for a werewolf. Piece of cake. We could do that run 5 times in a row. Come on. Race me to the water's edge and take off your clothes. The water will carry away our clothing and my car keys and wallet. No, we're going to carry our clothes in our mouths, and when we get up to the bluffs we put down our clothes and howl together and watch the surf and play among the rocks. Maybe catch ground squirrels if we get hungry. Sounds like a plan. When they got to the water's edge and took off their clothes, Jack saw other people approaching them. We're not alone, Karina, he said in alarm. It's okay, Jack. It's just the pack. What are they doing here? We're going to make the full moon run with them. But I don't know if I want to officially join the pack. There's bound to be flack with Ivan. He's very alpha. So are you, as you come into who you will be as a werewolf. So just keep it low-key for tonight. This isn't about positioning yourself within the pack. What is this for? Jack asked, puzzled. They want to honor you, welcome you, and celebrate your entrance into werewolf life. Whether you join the pack or we make our own pack, they just want you to be happy and feel like one of us. Do they know we might create our own pack? Of course. But they still want you to know what the camaraderie feels like. It's very unusual for a pack to want a male wolf to be added because they don't want a new male to claim one of their females. But you're lucky because we are already paired off, so they don't see you as a threat in that way. Wow. Jack's eyes glistened. This is an amazing surprise, Karina. I'm glad you're okay with it. What a relief. Oh, you're going to turn in a few seconds. I feel the coming moonlight moving through me like electricity. Are you finally going to tell me the answer to my question about why you claimed me on the night that Lance Brashears bit me and made me into a werewolf? He stepped out of the shadows of the lifeguard tower and into the brilliant glow of the full moon. Instantly, Jack turned to his silver and black werewolf form. Because I love you with all of my heart, Jack, thought Karina, and transformed herself too, just as the entire pack ran to greet him, their tails held high and waving and their eyes bright with a myriad of ever-changing colors. Chapter 20. Chung-Li awakened with a start. It was dark outside, but in the room he could tell that he was in his own bed. He felt the mattress next to him. That's right, my wife and son live in China. He was alone and out of it due to the Xanax he'd taken. His head was pounding. He thought it must have been because of the horrible dreams he'd had. In his dream there were wolves, no, werewolves, and they were tearing at flesh and baring teeth covered with blood. He started to get out of bed to get a glass of water. His mouth was dry like cotton. As he threw his legs over the side, he realized that he was still fully dressed in the suit he had worn to work that day. He was sweating profusely as well. He sat on the edge of the bed and tore at the shirt and tie until he had gotten them off, and as he stood, he caught a glimpse of something or someone out of the corner of his eye. There was someone sitting in the armchair in his room. Who's here? He said, trying not to let whoever it was hear his voice shake. The man who had been sitting in the chair, and apparently watching him sleep, stood and came toward the bed. Chung-Li jumped up to the other side and reached for the nightstand drawer that held his revolver. The man was dressed in a very expensive 3-piece suit, and his silver hair was combed and styled perfectly. He had a thin silver mustache and looked like an unlikely home invader. My name is Dmitri Rasputin, and that gun you're reaching for, will do you know? Good, unless it is filled with silver bullets and you shoot me square in the heart. Chung Li froze. They hadn't been dreams, he remembered. There had been werewolves at the cook's house, and this silver-haired man had been there as well. The man held out his hands to Chung Li and said, "You have nothing to fear from me. We have much to discuss. Like you, I'm a businessman and I'm here to make you a proposition."